Evan came home early that day. Rain was falling outside, soft and cold. Tapping the windows like tiny fingers, the hallway of his apartment building was quiet. Almost too quiet. He lived on the 3rd floor. In a small shared apartment with someone. Not quite human. Her name was Liara. She was his alien roommate. A quiet girl with pale silver blue skin and glowing eyes. They didn't talk much. Just shared the space and nodded when passing each other in the kitchen. But today, something felt different as Evan stepped into the apartment. He noticed the air smelled strange, like burned metal and flowers. The lights in the living room flickered. Not like usual power problems, this flicker felt alive. He called out, "Liara, you okay?" No answer came back, just a low hum, like a song made of wind and water. Coming from behind her bedroom door, Evan hesitated. He didn't want to invade her privacy, but the sound was getting louder. Almost like a warning or a cry for help. He walked slowly to her door, heart thudding in his chest. His fingers touched the handle gently. He whispered again, "Liara." Still no reply, only the hum, now mixed with whispers in a language he didn't understand. The door wasn't locked. He didn't mean to open it, but it moved with the slightest push, and then he saw her. Liara was floating above the floor, her body glowing softly like moonlight underwater. Her long white-silver hair floated around her head as if pulled by an invisible current. Her eyes were closed, her lips moving, whispering a chant that didn't belong to this world. Glowing marks crawled across her skin, symbols that pulsed and shifted like living tattoos. The room itself felt different, warmer, filled with an energy that made the air shimmer. Evan stood frozen in place, mouth open, unable to speak or move. And then her eyes opened, bright blue, glowing like twin stars. Staring straight into him, she gasped, a sound filled with shock and fear. Then she screamed one word, "Leave." Her voice echoed inside his head, not just his ears. It was like hearing her in every cell of his body. Evan stumbled back, his hand slipping off the doorframe. The lights above exploded with a pop. Showering sparks, he ran to his room, heart pounding. Slammed the door shut and collapsed against it. What had he just seen? Was it magic? Some kind of alien power? Why was she floating? What were those symbols? Was she dangerous? He sat on the floor, breathing hard, trying to make sense of it. They'd lived together for 6 months. She was quiet, always polite, always stayed in her room. Never talked much about her home planet, or why she was on Earth. He thought she was just shy, maybe homesick, but now he wasn't so sure. He didn't sleep that night. He kept hearing the sound of her whisper, the glow of her skin, the way she looked at him, not angry, not even afraid, but sad, like she had just broken something she couldn't fix. The next morning, the apartment was silent. Evan walked to the kitchen. Slowly, nervously, on the fridge was a note. Written in her neat alien handwriting, but in English. "Just for him," it said. "You weren't supposed to see that. Evan, you don't understand what I am, please. Stay away from me for now. I don't want to hurt you." Evan stared at the note for a long time. He didn't know whether to be afraid or concerned. She didn't sound angry. She sounded like someone who had just lost control, someone who feared herself. But one thing was clear: whatever Liara was hiding, he had just walked into a secret meant to stay buried. And now, there was no going back. He folded the note gently and put it in his pocket. He looked toward her room, the door now tightly closed. Locked, and for the first time, Evan wondered, what kind of power could glow through skin? What kind of truth was she hiding from him? And what would happen if someone else saw her like that? One thing was certain: this was no longer just a roommate story. This was something much, much deeper. And Evan had stepped into a mystery that might change everything he believed about aliens. And maybe even about himself. The next morning. Evan didn't hear Leora's footsteps in the hallway. No soft humming from her room. No clinking of mugs in the kitchen. Only silence. Deep and sharp, like the space between stars. He stood by the kitchen counter, holding a cup of cold coffee. Staring at the fridge where the notes still hung. The words kept echoing in his head. I don't want to hurt you. He knocked on her door gently. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. He waited outside for a minute, then finally walked away. Heart heavy with confusion, the day passed slowly. Evan tried watching a movie. Scrolling through news, even cleaning his room. But his mind kept drifting back to that glowing image. Her hair floating, her eyes lit like stars. Those strange glowing marks on her skin pulsing with power. It didn't feel real, and yet it was the most real thing he'd ever seen. That night, he heard the hum again. Not loud like before, just a soft, distant melody, almost like someone singing underwater. It came through the wall, pulsing gently, vibrating through the wooden floor. He sat on his bed and leaned his ear against the wall, holding his breath. The hum turned into whispers, soft and broken. Then he heard something else. Crying, not just tears, but deep, shaking sobs, like someone hiding pain for too long. Evan closed his eyes and listened. She was crying alone. And something about that sound crushed his heart more than fear ever could. The next morning, her door was still locked. But something new had appeared outside it, taped to the doorframe. A small square of paper with alien symbols. Drawn in red ink, it looked like a warning. He didn't dare touch it, but he placed a plate of food outside her door. Just eggs and toast, something simple. A silent way of saying, I'm still here, when he checked later. The plate was gone, but the note remained. Days passed, she still didn't speak to him. But things had changed. The apartment felt colder, more distant. Like two planets drifting apart. Sometimes he would see her walking quietly to the bathroom. Wrapped in a robe, glowing marks covered. Eyes down, avoiding him other times. He'd catch a glimpse of her in the kitchen, hands trembling as she poured tea. But she would vanish before he could speak, one evening. Evan returned home and found something unexpected. A package left outside the door. With no name, no return label, just a sleek black box. He opened it slowly and found a small silver orb inside. No bigger than a tennis ball. It buzzed gently in his hand. Humming with low alien energy, suddenly it lit up and projected a small hologram in front of him. It showed Liara. But not as he knew her. She was in a metallic room. Standing before a group of aliens in black robes, their faces hidden. One of them spoke. Voice cold and sharp. The experiment cannot stay on Earth. She has triggered the bloom, another added. If the bloom spreads, she becomes a weapon. Not a citizen. Then the image shifted, Lyra screaming. Locked in a containment pod, glowing so brightly she was almost white. The feed ended with a sharp tone, and the orb turned to dust in his hands. Evan stood there, frozen. What was the bloom? What experiment were they talking about? Was Liara running from something worse than a bad past? Maybe she wasn't just glowing from power. Maybe she was dying from it. That night, Evan made a choice. He sat outside her room and began to speak through the door. Liara, he whispered. I don't care what they did to you. I don't care what you are. Or where you came from. You've been kind, quiet, alone, and scared. And I've seen you cry when you thought no one could hear. I don't think you're dangerous, I think. You're hurt, and no one deserves to suffer like that. I'm not leaving, okay? I'm not scared of you. I want to understand, for a long moment. There was silence. Then, finally, a soft voice replied from the other side of the door. You saw what I tried to bury. I'm not just alien, Evan. I'm cursed. My body doesn't just glow. It breaks. I wasn't supposed to survive this long. Evan leaned his head against the door, his heart beating fast. She was speaking again, finally. I'm still here, he whispered back. And I'm not going anywhere. The next morning, her door was still closed. But the warning paper was gone, and in its place, a folded shirt neatly placed on the floor, glowing faintly at the edges, a silent answer to his words the night before. She was beginning to trust him again. But something darker was coming, and they were both running out of time. The sky outside turned dark before sunset. Thick clouds rolled over the city, heavy with lightning and anger. A storm was coming, and Evan felt it in his bones. He stood by the window, watching the first drops fall. Thunder cracked in the distance, sharp and deep, like a warning. He looked at Liara's door. It had stayed closed for days. But after her whispered reply the night before, something had shifted. There was hope, fragile but growing. Evan stepped toward her door again, this time not to talk but just to listen. That's when the power went out. The lights blinked once, then died. The hum of the refrigerator stopped. The heater shut off, and the room went still. Only the wind and rain remained, hammering the windows like fists. Evan reached for his phone, but the signal was gone. He grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, turned it on, and walked toward Liara's room. Suddenly, he heard her scream. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp, full of pain, like something tearing inside her. He dropped the flashlight and ran to her door. "Liara?" he yelled, banging on the door. "Are you okay?" No answer, just another cry. Softer this time, like her voice was breaking. He didn't wait. He kicked the door open, and what he saw made his blood freeze. Liara was on the floor, her body twitching. Her skin glowing red, not soft like before, but wild and violent. The symbols on her skin were pulsing too fast. Like they were overheating, sparks danced across her arms, and the air around her shimmered like hot glass. Her eyes were open, but they were not her eyes. They were glowing white, almost blind. She was whispering words again, but they sounded like pain, not power. Evan stepped in. Ignoring the heat, he reached for her. The moment his hand touched her shoulder, energy surged into him. It felt like grabbing a live wire, but colder, heavier, full of memory. Visions flashed in his mind, her past, her planet, her escape. He saw her running, bleeding, hiding in a crate, begging a stranger to help her leave her world behind. And then he saw fire. She had lost everything. Evan gasped and pulled his hand back, falling onto the floor. "Liara." He shouted, "You're safe now. You're not there anymore." But her body kept shaking. The red light was growing brighter, spreading through the room like a rising sun. He crawled toward her again, ignoring the pain in his hands. She was burning, but not with fire, with energy trying to escape her. She looked like she was about to explode. Then he remembered something she said before. "My body doesn't just glow. It breaks." This wasn't just her power. This was her curse. He cupped her face with both hands and shouted, "Liara, listen to me. I'm here. I see you. You're not alone." Her body jerked. The symbols paused. The light flickered. "I'm not afraid of you." Evan cried, "Please come back. Don't leave me." For one moment, everything stopped. No lightning, no thunder, just silence. Then her eyes slowly changed from white to blue. She blinked once, then collapsed into his arms. Unconscious, the red glow vanished. The heat faded, and the air became still again. Evan held her close, her breath weak but steady. He looked around the room. Books burned, furniture cracked. Even the walls had strange marks burned into them. But she was alive, and she hadn't exploded. She had come back because of his voice. He carried her gently to the couch in the living room, wrapped her in a blanket, even though she was still warm like a small sun. She slept deeply, without fear. Evan stayed beside her all night, watching her, listening to the storm slowly pass over the city. In the morning, she opened her eyes, just barely. Her voice was quiet, raw. "You brought me back." She whispered, "I didn't want you to die." Evan replied, his voice shaking. Liara looked at him, eyes filled with something deep: fear, shame, and something like gratitude. "I've never let anyone see me like that," she whispered. "Not even my own kind." "I'm glad I did," Evan said softly. "Because now I understand you're not dangerous. You're just..." Alone, Liara turned her face away, tears falling silently. He didn't try to stop her. He just stayed by her side, letting her cry in peace, because now he knew. She wasn't just hiding her power, she was hiding her pain. And Evan had just stepped into a world no human was ever meant to touch, but now, he would never walk away from it. Liara didn't speak for a long time. She sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. The light in her eyes was dim now, soft and tired. Evan sat across from her, hands clasped, waiting patiently. He didn't ask questions, not yet. He knew she needed time. The apartment still smelled like burned metal. The walls in her room were blackened, the carpet melted in strange spiral patterns. Whatever happened last night wasn't normal, but what scared Evan most was how close she had come to disappearing. One more second, and she might have never come back. At last, Liara spoke, her voice quiet and slow. "I wasn't born this way," she said, her fingers tracing the edge of the blanket. "I was made." Evan leaned forward, heart beating faster. "What do you mean?" "Made?" he asked gently. She didn't look up. "My kind, the Valari. We're created during the War of Stars, not born, not raised. Just built like weapons. I'm a Bloom type," she added, voice trembling. One of the last. Evan had never heard those words before, but they sounded heavy, like a secret carrying too much weight. He didn't interrupt, he just let her talk. "They made us to survive in space, to feed on radiation, to turn light into energy. We were meant to be used, burned, bright and fast, like living fuel, but something went wrong." She finally looked at him, and her eyes shimmered with something close to fear. "We became unstable, emotional, too human." Evan swallowed hard. "That's why you escaped?" he asked. Liara nodded slowly. "I ran during a supply drop, climbed into a cargo crate, and hid for 6 weeks in a smuggler's ship. I arrived on Earth with no papers, no credits, just one rule: don't let anyone see the glow." She smiled bitterly. "And then you walked in." Evan didn't laugh. He couldn't. He understood now it wasn't just power she was hiding. It was her very identity, her species, her history, her curse. "If you glow too much, what happens?" he asked quietly. Liara hesitated, then whispered, "I lose control. The bloom activates, and if it reaches full state, I explode." Evan stared at her, stunned, like, "Actually explode?" She nodded, her hands shaking slightly. "My energy breaks down everything around me. Then myself, it's a built-in failure switch. So we couldn't be captured alive by enemies." Her voice cracked. "I've seen it happen to others. I still hear them scream in my dreams." Evan sat back, trying to process it all. She wasn't just an alien roommate. She was a living bomb designed to destroy. And yet, she made tea every morning, folded laundry, cried quietly when she thought no one could hear. She wasn't a weapon. She was a person, broken and afraid. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" he asked. Liara looked away, ashamed. "Because you're human," she said. "You're not supposed to care. You're kind. They look at us like machines, tools, or worse things to fear. And you were kind, Evan." I didn't want to lose that. Evan stood up and walked toward her. He sat beside her on the couch and placed a hand over hers. "You didn't lose anything," he said softly. "You've gained someone who sees you now, not just the glow, not just the danger. I see the one who hums while cooking, the one who loves blue flowers and bad Earth movies, the one who risked her life to live free." Her fingers tightened around his. For a moment, her skin glowed softly, not red, not violent, just a gentle blue, like moonlight touching the ocean. It was beautiful and peaceful and full of life. But then, the doorbell rang. They both froze. No one ever visited them. No one even knew they lived together. Evan stood up slowly, heart racing. He looked through the peephole. A tall figure stood outside, wearing a long black coat. Face hidden by a dark hood, he held a small device in his hand. Blinking with green lights, the man raised his head slightly, revealing eyes that glowed silver, just like Leora's, but colder, sharper, emotionless. Liara gasped behind Evan. "Unity Enforcer." She whispered in horror, "They found me." The doorbell rang again, louder this time. Evan turned to her. "What do we do?" He whispered. She was shaking, panic rising fast. "If they scan me, they'll take me," she said. "Not for trial. For disposal." Evan's jaw clenched. Not again. Not after everything she'd been through. Not when she had just started to live. He turned off the lights, grabbed her hand, and whispered, "Then we run." Evan's hand gripped the doorknob. His heart was pounding, fast and sharp like a war drum. Behind him, Liara stood frozen, her glowing eyes wide with fear, outside the door. The Unity Enforcer waited silently. No more ringing. No knocking, just quiet, deadly quiet. The kind that made every second feel like a blade against the skin. They couldn't run, not yet. The apartment only had one exit, and it was blocked. "Bathroom window," Evan whispered. Liara shook her head, too small for both. To high outside, he looked around quickly. Thinking they needed time, he opened the door slowly. "Just a crack. Can I help you?" Evan asked, keeping his voice calm. The man in the coat didn't smile, didn't blink. "I'm here on behalf of the Unity Embassy," he said in a cold voice. "There have been energy readings." Evan forced a nervous laugh. "Oh, that? Probably my gaming PC," he lied. "Things ancient. Runs hot." The Enforcer stepped closer. "We have reason to believe a Bloom-class Volari is hiding in this district. We're scanning every apartment." Evan blocked the door with his foot. "Well, I don't see any glowing aliens in here," he said. "But if I do, I'll give you a call." The Enforcer tilted his head, studying Evan's face. His silver eyes narrowed. "Mind if I take a look around?" he asked coldly. Evan's breath caught. He needed to buy Liara more time. "Sure," he said finally, "but only the living room. Landlord gets mad about people snooping around." The Enforcer stepped in slowly, scanning the room with a small hovering drone. The drone buzzed softly, blinking blue as it floated near the ceiling. Liara had vanished. Taven didn't know where she was hiding, but he prayed it was good enough. The Enforcer moved like a machine, no wasted steps, no emotion. He paused near the hallway. Where Liara's room was, he reached for the door. Evan stepped forward quickly. "Hey, that's my studio space," he said, voice firm. "You need a warrant or whatever, right?" The Enforcer glanced at him, then smiled, a small, cold thing. "More threatening than friendly." "Very well," the man said, turning back toward the front door. "We'll be watching." As soon as the door closed behind him, Evan ran to the hallway. "Liara." He called. No answer. Then he heard the sound metal creaking. He opened the hallway closet, and there she was, curled up between blankets and boxes. Trembling, her skin wasn't glowing, but her eyes were wet with tears. "I've never been this close to one of them," she whispered. "I thought I'd faint." Evan knelt beside her. Helping her out carefully. You did great, he said softly. But we need to move tonight, she nodded, still shaking. But then Evan noticed something strange. His phone screen lit up by itself. A message appeared, even though there was no signal. You're harboring a weapon. You have 1 day. The text vanished the moment he read it. He looked at Liara. They're watching us, he said. Voice tight, she looked terrified. They've marked me, she said. I won't survive if they capture me, Evan, that night. They packed everything important, just the essentials. Liara carried only one thing from her room, a small pendant glowing faintly blue. It was given to me by another Bloom, she said quietly. She didn't make it. Evan shoved their bags into an old backpack and checked the window. The streets were quiet, but something felt wrong. He placed his phone in the microwave to block tracking signals. Just in case, then they slipped out the back stairwell. Staying low, avoiding lights, but what they didn't know was that the drone hadn't left. It had shrunk itself hidden under the bookshelf in their living room. Still scanning, still watching, it buzzed softly, then blinked red. As they moved through the back alley, Liara stumbled. Her skin glowed briefly just for a second, but enough to light the bricks around her. I can't hold it, she whispered. It's getting worse. Evan pulled her close. We'll get somewhere safe. I promise. They took shelter in an old parking garage. Cold and dusty, Liara sat on a concrete bench. Holding her knees, her pendant pulsed with energy. Trying to calm her body, Evan sat beside her, covering her with his coat. Then, from the shadows, a small mechanical voice said, Target confirmed. A hidden drone hovered above them, blinking red, projecting a unity emblem into the air. Liara gasped. No. No. It followed us. The drone charged a small weapon. But Evan moved first. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and smashed the drone with all his strength. Sparks flew, and the drone fell in pieces, still blinking, but the damage was done. They knew where she was now. The hunt had truly begun. The broken pieces of the drone still sparked on the floor. Evan stared down at them, breathing hard, pipe still shaking in his hands. Liara leaned against the concrete wall, her eyes wide, glowing faintly from fear and panic. They know, she whispered. They know where I am. Evan nodded slowly. I know, he said. That's why we can't stop. There is no time to rest, no time to think. They grabbed their bags and ran down the parking garage stairwell. Feet echoing with every step, every light felt like a spotlight. Every shadow felt like eyes watching them outside. The wind howled through the city streets, carrying the scent of metal and rain. They didn't have a plan, just one goal: disappear. Liara pulled the hood of her jacket tighter around her face, trying to hide the glow from her eyes, but the glow was getting stronger. Evan could see it even through the fabric. They reached the train station, but Evan stopped before the entrance. There were Unity drones floating above the tracks, scanning the crowds. Security officers with glowing red visors moved through the passengers like hunting dogs. Too risky, he muttered, pulling Liara back into the alley. She nodded, her skin pulsing faster now. I can't stay around tech, she whispered. They use it to track Bloom signatures, Evan thought quickly. There's another way, he said. The old utility tunnels under the city, they've been sealed off. But I know someone who has a key. They moved fast, cutting through narrow streets and broken fences. Liara winced every few steps, holding her side. The energy inside her was rising like pressure in a sealed bottle. It's building again, she whispered. I can feel it. Evan didn't stop. We'll find a way to help you, he promised. I won't let them take you. They finally reached a rundown building near the edge of the city. The windows were shattered. The door half broken. Inside, dust floated in the air, and old metal shelves leaned crooked in the dark. Evan knocked twice on a steel hatch under the floor. Then kicked it 3 times. A voice called from below. "Who knocks like that during a Unity lockdown?" "It's Evan," he replied. "I need a favor." A few seconds later, the hatch opened. A short man with goggles and oil-stained gloves looked up at them. "Evan, you're supposed to be out of the system." "I am," Evan said. "And I need to stay that way with her." He stepped aside, letting the man see Liara, who was barely standing. The man's eyes widened at the glow from her skin. "Stars above," he muttered. "She's a bloom, please," Evan begged. "She needs to get underground." Away from the scans, the man sighed, stepped aside. "Come on then. But don't blow up my tunnel." They climbed down the hatch. Into the cold, dark passage, old pipes ran along the walls. Flickering lights above them barely working. The tunnel smelled like rust, dust, and forgotten machines. "This used to be a maintenance line," the man explained. "No cameras, no AI. It'll get you to the outer zones, where Unity doesn't patrol often." "Thank you," Evan said, gripping his shoulder. The man nodded. "But be careful, Unity has trackers everywhere now, and if she hits full charge again, even the tunnels won't save you." They moved forward in silence, their footsteps echoing off the walls. Liara held onto Evan's arm. Her breathing shaky, she stopped suddenly. Clutching her chest, I can't hold it," she whispered. "The bloom's rising." Evan turned to her. "What do I do?" "Tell me what to do." She fell to her knees, glowing brighter now, light leaking from her fingertips. "Get back," she cried. "I can't stop it this time." But Evan didn't back away. He dropped beside her and held her tightly. "You don't have to stop it," he said softly. "You just have to feel safe." Her body shook, light pouring from her eyes and mouth. The symbols on her skin burned like fire, shifting wildly. The whole tunnel seemed to pulse with her energy. And then she screamed, the sound raw and filled with terror. But Evan didn't let go. He whispered over and over, "You're not a weapon. You're not alone. You're safe. I'm here, Liara. I'm here." The light began to flicker. The shaking slowed. Her breathing softened and slowly, gently. The glow faded back to a calm blue. She collapsed into his arms. Weak but alive, Evan held her close, tears in his eyes. "I've got you," he whispered. "I'll always have you behind them." The shadows moved again, but this time, they weren't drones. It was someone else, another alien, watching from the far end of the tunnel. He wore a gray cloak, and his eyes glowed soft green, not like the Enforcer's silver. He stepped forward slowly, hands raised in peace. "I saw the light," he said calmly, "and I've been looking for her." Evan stood, placing himself between the stranger and Liara. "Who are you?" he demanded. The alien stopped a few steps away. "I'm not Unity," he said. "I'm like her. And I came to help." Evan stood protectively in front of Liara, his fists clenched, his heart pounding like thunder in his chest. The stranger in the tunnel didn't flinch. He raised both hands slowly, keeping his distance. "I'm not here to hurt her," he said gently. "I'm here because I know what she is." Liara stirred in Evan's arms, her eyes opened, soft and tired. When she saw the man in the gray cloak, she gasped. "Thalos," she whispered. The man nodded slowly. "Yes, sister." Evan looked between them, confused and alert. "Sister?" he asked. Liara sat up weakly, her voice trembling. "He's not my blood brother. But he's a bloom. We were made in the same lab." Thalos stepped closer. "Carefully, I escaped years before she did," he said. "I've been searching for survivors ever since. I felt her pulse last night, the energy she released. It shook the underground." Evan helped Liara to her feet. She leaned on him, still weak. "You said you want to help," Evan said, his eyes locked on Thalos. "How?" The Unity won't stop until they find her. Thalos nodded slowly. There's a place deep in the asteroid belt, he said. A sanctuary built by exiled Villari. It's hidden from scans. Protected by old tech Unity can't detect. I can take her there. Evan's chest tightened. That meant she'd be safe. Free from fear, free from running, but it also meant losing her. Liara looked up at him, reading his face. You don't want me to go, she whispered. He shook his head, slowly. No, I don't. But I want you to live, she smiled softly, her fingers brushing his hand. I started dying the moment I left my world, she said. But you gave me something I never had before, a reason to stop glowing. You made me feel human. Thalos reached into his cloak and handed Evan a small silver device. If she comes with me, this will let you speak to her. Across any distance, even across stars. Evan held the device tightly. He didn't know if he wanted to cry or run, but he knew this wasn't about what he wanted. It was about what she needed. He turned to Liara. I'll come find you someday, he whispered. She nodded. I'll be waiting. Always glowing a little. Just for you. Before they could leave, the tunnel shook. A siren echoed through the metal walls. Unity was coming. They found the drone, Thalos said, voice sharp. They're tracing the residual energy. We need to move, Liara said. Her strength returning fast, but this time? Her glow wasn't violent. It was calm, stable like a light from someone who had found peace. She held Evan's face in her hands one last time. I'm not a weapon anymore, she whispered. I'm a survivor. Because of you, and then she kissed him, just once. Soft and slow like a goodbye wrapped in light. Talos took her hand, and together they vanished down a hidden tunnel. The moment they disappeared, the glowing walls dimmed, and Evan was alone again. But something had changed, not just inside the tunnels. Inside him 2 days passed. Evan returned to the surface. The Unity search ended with no success. They found wreckage of drones. Burnt energy signatures, but no Bloom-class Villari. The news moved on. The city forgot, but Evan never did. He moved to a quiet town on the edge of the forest. Started working with abandoned tech, helping fix things others threw away. Every night, he turned on the small silver device and waited for a message. Sometimes it blinked blue. Sometimes it blinked red. But then, one night, it blinked green. He opened it slowly, and her voice filled the room. Evan, it's beautiful here. The stars don't chase me anymore. They watch me. I met others like me, and I told them about you. They didn't believe me. Until they saw me smile. I miss Earth. I miss your clumsy coffee, your broken chair, and how you always knock twice on accident. But most of all, I miss the way you looked at me, not like a weapon, not like a creature, but like someone worth saving. Evan sat in silence, tears slipping down his cheeks. She was alive, she was safe, and she remembered everything. The message ended with 3 words, soft, simple, and glowing on the screen. I love you. Evan smiled through the tears, looked up at the stars, and whispered. I love you too, because that day he walked in without knocking. He didn't just find a secret, he found a soul. And what he saw that day changed his life forever.